PulseX, it's this DEX, as we've already talked about, this decentralized exchange. But there are many other ones, like we've already mentioned, Uniswap, SushiSwap, PancakeSwap. What makes PulseX different from them? Aside from the fact that it's going to have the most liquidity on PulseChain, what are some unique qualities that it has?
So there's an interesting thing between what sells and what works, right? So in some ways, it's not revolutionary by design, because revolutionary means new and untested, right? Mm-hmm. If I told you that we're going to send you in space and that we have, a rocket that's extremely tested, it's 10 years old, we've done this 100 times, or I told you there was the most revolutionary rocket ever, I want the old rocket. Send me the one that's got 10 years of experience. I don't want the revolutionary rocket. That's not me. Don't send me into space that way. So in some ways, you want to look at what the real goal is. And a lot of what we have on PulseX isn't revolutionary, because you don't want to use revolutionary stuff when you're trying to trust it to billions and billions of dollars, right? So most of the code is just forked over from Uniswap, which is the same as Sushi and Trader Joe's and Pancake. So it's code that's already working, because if it didn't work, it would have broken in all these places, right? And it's the best code because the next guy forked that code, and the guy after him forked that code, and the guy after him forked that code. So this is a very battle-hardened sort of core set of parameters that work. So where PulseX does differ is in the tokenomics, which are extremely cool, and they're simple in that they're very easy to kind of get, and they're very easy to overlook. So in PulseX, you're going to actually have two tokens. You're going to have the reward token, which is yet to be named, and that's what you would get from yield farming as a reward for providing liquidity. And then you're going to have the actual PulseX token, which has two main properties. One is the buy and burn. The way the buy and burn works is that whenever you transact on any of these DEXs, they have a swap fee. So when you transact, there's the gas fee to interact on whatever network you're on, and then there's the swap fee that the protocol itself charges. So in Uniswap, it's 0.3%. In Pancake, it's 0.25. Sushi is right in that same range. Most of them are all around that, essentially anywhere from a quarter of 1% to a third of 1%. Where PulseX sort of differs a bit is in how that fee gets moved around. So assuming that fee is $100, just for a nice round number, $76 of that swap fee would go to the liquidity providers. So whatever pair you're interacting in, as people trade in that pair, you get paid the liquidity fees, right? And that's the same as every protocol. Anyone who's ever provided liquidity or swapped in and out has either paid these fees or received them. 3% is going to go to the dev address, and that's our no expectations. Those guys could go cure cancer. They could snort it off in big thick lines if they want. They can do whatever they want with that stuff, right? The magic when it comes to PulseX is the 21% of that fee that is an actual buy and burn. So that means that it's not just burning, but it is buying on market. So if I have a $100 swap fee where I bought something with USDC and swapped it out, I would take 21 USDC. It would purchase on market out of the liquidity pool. It would buy PLSX and then burn it. Where that can be confusing is that typically when you see these systems, people are used to seeing deflationary and they're used to seeing buy and burns, but they're usually in systems that are still net inflationary. So we see the burn in Ethereum, and they're like, oh, we're burning Ethereum, but it's still inflating. So it's just a metric that controls inflation, right? So burning Ethereum sounds very powerful, but if I told you it's just inflating slower, it doesn't have the same ring, and it shouldn't. And it's the same thing in Cake. So Cake has a similar function, but it's still net inflationary. If you look at the supply of Cake on a log scale, it does slow down, but it's still growing. So it doesn't have the same impact on the tokenomics in those systems. But PulseX doesn't inflate. It just deflates. Once the sacrifice phase is over and PulseX is actually launched, it is impossible to mint more PulseX. So the reason this buy and burn is such a powerful price action is that it's not just deflating, because deflation doesn't really cause an acute action, right? If I take PulseX out of my wallet and send it to a burn address, nothing happens. Now there is less market, there's less to be sold, so it does have an effect sort of on the marketplace over time, but nothing happened right then. The price was $1, and I take 1 billion PulseX and send them to a burn address, Price is still $1. Nothing moved, nothing interacted with that pool. But there is less on market later on. Where PulseX is special is that it buys right then. So you have an acute price action right there. Boom, it purchased out of the liquidity pool. Price goes up and then it gets burned. So you have this really, really strong mechanic of where if you look at the volume that you see in like Uniswap and SushiSwap, that would translate to hundreds of thousands of dollars a day in buy pressure. Like this is the equivalent of going and getting maybe not a whale, let's call them a dolphin. That buy and burn, if we got to the volumes that are around that you see in SushiSwap and Uniswap, this is a dolphin buying their bag and then burning it every single day. And it does this whether the token is 1 penny, 10 cents, $1, $10, because it's not an educated buyer. It's just buying. If the liquidity pools are thin and it's pushing the price up, it doesn't matter. If the price is what we would consider as investors very, very expensive, it doesn't matter. It still buys and pushing that price up. So that buy and burn keeps deflating the supply over time, but it is very acutely powerful right there and allows this thing to not just grow in price, but you have a token that would go up in price if no human being ever bought it. If no one ever bought PulseX, PulseX could still go up in price. Then that's very unique mechanics. The other is the DAO voting. Now, the vast majority of people, if they don't know what DAO voting is and don't understand how it works, it's a little complicated, but essentially it's just voting. But what's powerful about this is it's just similar to the real world. People will spend money to try to get you to vote for them, whether you vote or not. So it's part of the utility, the market value, the use case of the coin, whether or not you actually vote or not.